This podcast is brought to you in part by the support of the AMTV Patreons. Thank you. Hello everybody, and welcome back to AMTV Radio. This is the podcast where I'm joined by a very special guest each time, and we chat about whatever the hell we want to, quite frankly. And today I am joined by a creative who is relatively new to the YouTube creating scene, but has gained quite the following in sort of short amount of time, and in my opinion makes some of the best video essays on Doctor Who in the community today. Introducing Joe Brennan. How's it going, Joe?
Hello, it's going well, yeah. That was a nice intro.
Oh, thanks.
I was just sat there like, he's been very friendly.
I practice in front of my mirror every day, just like my mother told me. So, no, thanks for coming on. And as I said, yeah, you are, like, because I looked at your channel and you only have, at the time of recording anyway, 15 videos, I believe, 15 published videos.
Yeah, I think that's true.
And you're on 4,000 subscribers, which, I mean, first of all, congratulations. That's
Thank
mad.
you.
That's so good. But yeah, just for those who maybe aren't, I'm sure some people are, but for those who aren't as familiar with yourself or your work, just tell us a bit about yourself. You know, what kind of stuff do you make?
On YouTube, I mean, I've been going since August 2020, which, you know, is not long at all, you know, comparatively speaking. People have been on here for a decade.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I think I'm hoping to not be just a Doctor Who channel, but I've made a lot of Doctor Who videos because that's one of my big passions.
Yeah.
So I think I like video essay as a title rather than review or anything, because I think I quite like formatting an argument. I think when I was starting out, I mean, I'm still starting out, but when I was starting out, I wasn't quite sure what to do, and I did 3 like deep dive reviews into the series 10 finale of Doctor Who, the World Enough and Time, Doctor Falls, Twice Upon a Time, and I think that was in doing that, I kind of realized that that's not what I want to do. And I then was just like, okay, I'm not going to make Doctor Who content unless I can like put forward a specific argument rather than I like this part, I like the acting, I like, because I don't think I'm very good at it.
Bless you, man.
And I prefer a video essay because I think that is something that I am quite good at.
I suppose video essays, in a way, like I've always seen video essays as opposed to reviews are more like, in a weird way, it's sort of like, I find it more like telling a story. Like, I know it's like you say presenting an argument, but it feels more, it has like its beginning, middle, and end, rather than like you say just going, this is good, this is bad, I don't like this is, etc. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Any reviewers, you go for it, but yeah, it feels more like a story in a way, a video essay.
I have a lot of respect for people that can do the reviews and not make it, because I think you've got to provide enough context for people to know what you're talking about, and you also have to go in a logical order. So it becomes you going through the episode in chronological order, explaining what happens at every given point. But yeah, I found every time I was writing it that I was just coming into summing it up. So I prefer having a bit more of a creative beginning, middle, and end.
Well, we'll talk more about your video essays in a moment, but one thing I do with any creator I have here on the podcast is it's a bit weird for yourself, because obviously I like to go back to their first video, which for most people is, like you say, 7, 8, 10 years ago. Yours is in August, and it's about good old Skongo. Doctor Who's greatest villain, but some of you out there might be thinking, what on earth are you talking about? So, as best you can, who is Skongo?
See, the Skongo video, that was, for me, it wasn't something that I wanted to kickstart like a YouTube career or like hobby or whatever.
Sure.
It was more just, it was part of Doctor Who TARDIS posting, and that's the Facebook shit posting group, I guess, for Doctor Who, and it was a meme that was really popular in like 2017, and everyone was in on it, and then slowly as the group grew, it became a bit more obscure and the meme died down because no one was in on it, and I thought that it was a good opportunity to kind of summarize the history of it and explain that. So briefly, because it took about like 7 minutes or something to explain the whole thing. There's a lot of kind of context and twists and turns. But essentially, some members of the like kind of meme shitposting group went into a bit more of a normal kind of fan community, and would just, I think there was a culture of gatekeeping going on in those groups that we didn't like, and it was very much like, oh, you haven't seen this episode, and I think as much as we were all like shit posters, that kind of rubbed us the wrong way. So we thought like it would be funny to start gatekeeping Doctor Who to these gatekeepers. So it was like, so we posted like what's your favorite classic villain, and then like put Daleks but spelt wrong, Cybermen but a picture of a robot, and Slitheen but then a picture of the Ice Warriors. Just brilliant things that would get these guys annoying. And then it wasn't even me that posted the first image, it was my friend, and he just posted in like a poll of favorite villains, just a picture that he had on his computer, because he is not a big enough fan of Doctor Who to think of a fourth villain. He thought Daleks, Cybermen, Slitheen, and then was like, oh, I don't know, and just chucked up a picture of my friend that he had on his computer, put it in black and white, and wrote Skongo in brackets classic Who, which is just genius. And then everyone was like, I'm sorry, I don't know who this Skongo is. And then me and him in the comments were like, you don't know who Skongo is?
Yes.
And then, other members of TARDIS posting saw this and were like, we're getting in on this, photoshopping him into episodes, making new memes, making fake scenes, making, Wikipedia articles, a petition to Chris Chibnall to bring him back. And then it kind of, just grew into, some people hate him because, it was everywhere for a bit. It was.
Was it one of those memes? People love it so much, but you just can't scroll without seeing it pop up everywhere.
I think, especially people who weren't in on it, like hadn't been there originally, it was such a stupid thing. And to be honest, anyone asking how it worked and what it was just met with, do you not remember the bongos of Skongo in 1971? So that was probably more infuriating for anyone who wasn't in on the joke.
Oh my god!
But for everyone who was, it was just hilarious, and I loved it. There was fan art. People went to Doctor Who conventions and got some of the doctors to say that Skongo was the best villain. We got Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, Paul McGann, David Bradley.
Oh my.
John Leeson, Peter Purvis, they've all got videos saying that Skongo is the best villain.
Because he is the best villain, people.
He is. I've got just a printed picture of him on my wall. He's just a picture of my friend. It's just a picture of my friend in like year 11 or something doing D of E.
Wow.
And he thinks it's bizarre, and his family think it's hilarious because suddenly this picture of him has just been, it's not quite him, it's like they edited the nose a bit and made the smile a bit.
Yeah, the smile, yeah.
But, and now, because it was a very low res image that was then run through the kind of the thing that makes it HD, and now it looks nothing like him. Like the full HD Skongo is not a real person. But just, I think one time he got recognized. Someone like looked at him, and then there was a comment like, I think I've seen Skongo at my uni. I was like, that guy does go to uni. So for him, I think I then released Skongo merch last year because there was some demand for it, and there's someone bought a Skongo shower curtain, and but my friend got a Skongo water bottle with his own face on it, and then left it at home, and then went to uni, and then it came out like a few months ago that his dad had been taking the Skongo water bottle to work, and every day, and his workmates were like, why do you have a picture of Lenny on your water bottle? He was like, something about Doctor Who. He didn't quite get it.
Memes, So.
Yeah, it was just that's fantastic. Just hilarious. But
I love wholesome memes like that. I know it was like to sort of troll the gatekeepers, but it was done in a fairly wholesome manner. There's a lot of creativity and kind of passion that went into it, like more than I was expecting, and I don't think it was horrible. And it's quite nice to have a meme that's pretty much like not mean-spirited in the most part. Obviously some people like took it one way, some people were a bit more, but just on the whole pretty good. And then so my video that I made last year, like early last year, I think I made it for Doctor Who TARDIS posting because the group had gained about 10,000 or 20,000 more members in the time since that meme was popular. So I just wanted to educate people because occasionally
it would be mentioned in a meme by someone that had been there since the start, and everyone would be like, what's a Skongo? And I was like, I've got to let people know. And then so I made that for the group, and then I just thought, I'll put that on YouTube. I've got a YouTube account. I'll just put it up there, just briefly explain it. And then it just got like, 5,000 views over that year. And, I think because a lot of people were using it as a resource, as just like, oh, you don't know what Skongo is, check this out. I mean, that's such a low quality video. That's me talking into like a little tinny microphone I have like plug into my laptop, and edited as like a screen recorded PowerPoint, and you can just hear me click to change the slides, and it's just so I didn't, that wasn't my plan to kickstart my YouTube career. That was more just like, I'll chuck it on YouTube, and then the views came in. And then when it came to actually making a proper video, like a video for YouTube, an actual Doctor Who one, a video essay, I already had like a few hundred subscribers, which was nice because, I wasn't starting from the bottom. I was starting from like, 200 subscribers, which it's not huge, but it's a start.
Hey, with one video, that's cracking. 200 subscribers, I'll take that,
and I think when it came to them releasing my first video essay, which I wanted to make sure was quite high quality, it was then, I had some people watching it at the start, which, some people, I was always worried that I would have to release a video to 0 subscribers and then build up from there. But it was nice, and it put me in quite a good position going forward. And I think, thank God for Skongo.
Thank God for Skongo. It's funny, isn't it, how it can all start with something so random, because yours is like it's nice to see that even though you started only last year, your sort of reasonings are the same why a lot of us did way back when. Like, it's that whole, we'll just put it on YouTube because why not, more than anything else. I guess a lot of us didn't come in thinking, we're gonna start and make it big off YouTube, and we're gonna drop everything else. Like, I guess it's nice, because I guess that's what YouTube was for originally, just to upload
things that you already have.
Yeah, exactly. But as I said, you've got 15 videos now, the time of recording, 4,000 subscribers, which is fantastic. So, like you said, you started, like, some of the earliest stuff you did was the Series 10 finale. And the one in particular I found the most interesting was your Twice Upon a Time one, because that's an episode personally, like, I love. Like, I loved it on broadcast, still do now. I just think it does have its problems. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I found it a very lovely conclusion to like the Moffat era, the Capaldi era. I love the fact there was no like main villain. It was just a very sort of low key. But a lot of people, I think, out there, it's fair to say, a lot of people, I'd even argue the majority, aren't particularly fond of Twice Upon a Time for various. Obviously, you have like the sexist stuff that for some reason Moffat thought was like, that's a good idea.
That's gonna make me happy.
But but I noticed, wasn't the title something like Why I Changed My Mind on it? So
yes.
Just in summary, because I know you guys can check out the video for the full details, but just in short, like what did make you change your mind about? Which way were you?
I was very much against it. I was to the extent when I was at school when it came out. I was in sixth form, and I thought it would be funny to write an article on my school blog about how much I hated it, and how much I specifically hated the William Hartnell like sexism aspect. And the way I thought to do this was in a way that I'm actually still quite proud of, was through clickbait. And I called it R.I.P. Doctor Who, 1963 to 2017.
Oh,
and
no, that sounds so eerily familiar.
And the picture was Jodie Whittaker, because it was the year she was cast. And that, I think my teacher said that I think that still might be the most viewed article on the website, because people go in expecting, and I go a long way into the article without really saying what my point is. I'm just like, they've changed the one thing that's been constant, they've done this, and it looks like your generic anti-13 rant, and then I'm just like, they made the first Doctor sexist in Twice Upon a Time. So it was mostly a joke, but at the same time it did come from a bit of a place of I wasn't happy with how that ended. I loved the Doctor Falls and World Enough in Time, and I think to then end on what I thought was a bit of an unnecessary like epilogue, and one that on top of that, made the first Doctor sexist, and did all kinds of nonsense. I wasn't thrilled, but what made me change my mind was that I rewatched it and realized that I had probably been a bit too hard on it, and that it was actually kind of lovely. and I was, because I'd written my reviews for World Enough and Time and The Doctor Falls, and I had, even in them made reference to how I didn't like what followed. And then it was just like, I was only planning on doing those two. And then when it came to the end of The Doctor Falls, I was like, I can't really discuss the end of The Doctor Falls without going on to what came next. So I was like, okay, I'll bite the bullet. I'll watch Twice Upon a Time. And then I was like, oh, this is good. This is a nice however long it is, but it was I really enjoyed it. I thought it was just hopeful and Christmassy and just I loved all the stuff with Bill, even though I at the time didn't. I was really annoyed that they'd kind of brought her back, but not really brought her back, and I think they just should have left that. And I think maybe they still should have, but when I rewatched it, it worked for me, and I just found myself just like, oh, I probably need to. And that's that. Of the 3 reviews I did, that became my favorite, because it was one that I felt I had something to say beyond this bit's good, because it was more like, how did I go from someone who really, really hated it and ranted about it on the school blog to someone, making a half-hour YouTube video about why it was kind of nice.
No, I love that you reevaluated it, though, by a rewatch, because I hear a lot of people sometimes when they say, oh, like, I think this episode's terrible. And it's like, oh, well, would you rewatch it? And they go, no, why would I want to? And it's like, well, I mean, I've been the same as you. There's been, trying to think now, even some, like, classic Who stories that I thought, oh, they weren't as good. I rewatch them and think, oh, do you know what? It's actually got some redeeming qualities. I think there's a lot of value in a rewatch. And with the Series 10 finale, I can't remember if you think the same as this, but, like, with the Doctor Falls, like, I love the end, like, how it sets itself up. I love the payoff. And I know a lot of people say it should have ended with, Capaldi saying, I hope there'd have been stars. And I think that, for me, that would have been lovely if it was like a complete end to Doctor Who, if that is like, this is it, this is the end. But I don't know, I just like how Twice Upon a Time is, as you say, like this lovely little epilogue of like how it takes a man who, let's be honest, without being straight, like by the end of the Doctor Falls, like he doesn't want to continue. He's willing to, I guess, give it up there.
Yeah.
But then by the end of that, find some, like you say, some renewed hope. I think there's something really powerful about that, to be honest, and very, very, as you say, I don't know, hopeful. Hopeful's the best word.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. That's kind of along the lines of what I was doing. Especially, it was interesting for me, I think, because I did my Dr. Falls review with a very much, this should have been the end. And then when it came to Twice Upon a Time, I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe it shouldn't have been. Which is why I look back at those reviews and I really like them, and I like the kind of 3-part nature of them. The fact that I kind of made a video for each episode, even though it killed me. It was just the most burnt out I've ever been by the end of it. But I think I would like to do something like that again, maybe with the Series 9 finale, but I not for a very long time. But I quite like that. My opinion on the 3 episodes as a whole was completely different by the end of the review than how I started, which makes it less coherent and less of a full story. But I think it makes it a bit more authentic, because it's just like, oh, I changed my mind.
It's the journey of it, I suppose, which is, I know it's a bit of a corny term, but it's true. It is the journey of it. But as you said towards the start, you don't want to just do Doctor Who related stuff, which is completely fair enough. YouTube has this horrible thing of, once you've found like a good thing, it's like, oh yeah, keep doing that and nothing else. It can be very, it feels very limiting at times. So without divulging too many of your plans, if you want to keep stuff secret, but what sort of, I guess, topics, franchises do you want to, I guess, expand to?
I quite like the idea of just film and TV in general. And covering whatever topics that I feel inspired to cover at any given point. I love Doctor Who a lot, but I think if I was forcing myself to every 2 weeks come up with a Doctor Who opinion to talk about, I would end up hating it. And I to hate it. I want to make the videos because I enjoy them. And I think that would be reflected in the content. I think if it was just like, oh, I've got to have another hot take, let me just rewatch a random episode and, but I think going forward, I would just I made recently for last Sunday a video on trailers and just how I think they're a really interesting art form, because on the one hand, you can have a really special experience with a trailer that you don't get from a film, and memories associated specifically with a trailer. But at the same time, I hate trailers and they're awful because they give everything away. And that's pretty much how the video goes. It's like, here's all the good things and here's all the bad things. And I really enjoyed that, and I'm really happy with the response to that, because I'm essentially a Doctor Who channel posting a non-Doctor Who video and getting positive comments and lots of views, and it's just nice to see that, because I was very scared to branch out initially. Also, I'm quite a big Star Wars fan.
I see that Last Jedi. Is that a Last Jedi, or is that Rise of Skywalker?
It's a Last Jedi.
Nice.
Not Rise of Skywalker. No.
Oh, okay.
That's something I'll probably end up covering. Is my opinion on those. Again, probably not reviews, but I'll probably rewatch them and see if there's anything specific I have to say. I'm big into Marvel at the moment. I know a lot of people are feeling superhero fatigue, but I'm just like, give me more. But yeah, I think, to be honest, I've said that I'll just do anything. But that's hard to say at the moment because there's not really much coming out. So I think if I was thinking maybe I could do reviews of new films, but I haven't seen a new film in a while. So who knows if something I want to do or can do.
Kudos to you, man, because as I said, YouTube has it's so difficult. I think once I guess you find your niche on this platform it's not that it's not that I think creators are afraid to branch out, but it is, like you say, it is the fear of doing something different and then either YouTube not pushing it as much or audiences not responding to it. It's a very weird space, and it's something I've tried to do. And I mean, as I say, kudos to you for doing it as well. I think it's as weird as it can be. I think it is the best way to go, really.
Yeah. I thought it was not smart, but the right decision to do it sooner rather than later, rather than be an established YouTuber for 3 years and then just be like, I'm sorry guys, I'm breaking up with Doctor Who. It was just more like, I've done 10 Doctor Who videos and now I'm going to do some other things. And it's really weird to see that I've done that many videos, because it feels like I've been doing it for longer, because they were really spread out for a bit, and it's kind of a long project would take me quite a few weeks. So the fact that I think I've done 15 videos, but 2 of those are just, one's like a 2-minute April Fool's video I did, and one's a just channel update. So as far as actual proper content, it's like just 13 videos that I it feels like I've done more, and I hope I can keep doing more. But I really am I feel like I'm getting started.
Good. It's a good place to be, and I think you seem to be making all the right steps so far. So long may that continue. And I mean, with, as you say, just I do want to talk about Star Wars with you in a little bit, because I'm a big Star Wars fan as well. I don't get to talk about it enough, but just because I am curious about this as well. With Doctor Who, what got you into this crazy little sci-fi show that we all know and love?
A different little crazy sci-fi show called The Sarah Jane Adventures.
Oh, no way!
That's the way round I did it.
Mad!
And, I was watching CBBC, as I did as a child in and I saw the episode of The Sarah Jane Adventures with the red lady called Eve. The Mad Woman in the Attic is what it's called.
So, yeah.
And I saw that and I was like, this is weird and cool. And I don't know if that's a good episode or anything, but I think I remember just liking the vibe. And I watched a few more. I remember the Slitheen, I remember the Blathereen, and then the Trickster. I remember seeing a repeat of the Whatever Happened to Sarah Jane, and just being like, holy shit, this is intense. So I was big into Sarah Jane, and you'd think like, if you were that big into Sarah Jane, why not try Doctor Who? I saw David Tennant in The Wedding of Sarah Jane Smith, and was just like, oh, there's the Doctor. I'm aware enough of Doctor Who to know who that is, but
Yeah.
I still had no interest in actually checking out Doctor Who because it didn't have Sarah Jane in it. So
Sure.
I really like, you know, Clyde and Rani and Luke and Maria when they showed repeats, because I was a bit too young to be watching that first series. But I think after Liz Sladen died and the show stopped, I was just, I was upset. I was very upset that she died because I was, you know, quite young, and it was the first time I'd not noticed, but like known of someone and been invested in someone's work, and then had them pass away. And that had like an actual like tangible impact because Sarah Jane stopped. You know, I think often when people die and you're not kind of following their career, it's just like, oh, that person who I was aware of isn't alive anymore. But like this was something that it was like, oh my God, she's dead. And Sarah Jane is dead, and you know, whatever. And I just kind of, so that was 2011, and I was really missing the show. My mum was like, "Oh, why don't you check out Doctor Who when that comes back on?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's all right idea," because I think I'd got it into my head that Doctor Who was really scary because so I was born in 2001. And I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And how old was I when Blink came out? I must have been 5 or 6 when 5.
Yeah, maybe a bit too young for Blink.
When Blink came out, and people on the playground had watched it, and I remember vividly remember the day after, or the Monday after the weekend that Blink had come out, and everyone was like, "The Weeping Angels! Oh my God, the scariest things!" And I was just like, "Fuck that! I'm not watching that." So I had got it into my head that that was a grown-up show for adults who could stomach that kind of thing. So it wasn't until 2012 that I like got into Doctor Who, and so my first episode was Asylum of the Daleks, which everyone says is a great place to start.
Well, each to their own.
No, it was. I don't remember loving it, but I remember liking Matt Smith and liking the vibe. I think recognizing that there was more going on than the episode itself, that I was just like, I quite like this 11th Doctor fellow. I think he's all right. I'd already seen him in that one Sarah Jane episode, and it was I stuck with it for the next few weeks, and then I think in the gap between Series 7 Part 1 and 2, I went back and watched Series 1 to Series 6. Just
you did a big old binge.
One of my first ever just big old binges, and then was properly caught up by the time of Bells of St. John. I can't remember what the gap was, but that by the time that happened, I was on board, and I kind of went from only slightly aware of Doctor Who to intense obsessed Doctor Who fan in a very short period of time.
That's so mad though, because I'm sure there's many out there, but you're the first person I've chatted with who came into this whole thing through Sarah Jane. I think that's so lovely though, because that's exactly what I guess the show was designed for in a way. Because I watched it as a kid as well, but after Doctor Who, I'd seen Sarah Jane in School Reunion, and it was like, oh, she was in this show way back when, and then they did the spin-off, but it's so, again, it's fascinating though, because I think a lot of us, like myself, came in with Eccleston, with the revival, parents going, oh, you should watch this and all that. Yeah. So it's so refreshing to hear a completely different introduction. I think that's brilliant. Yeah.
A lot of people are very surprised when that was my way in. And also that I've only been a fan since 2012, because that doesn't feel like very long ago. I mean, it's coming up on like 9 years, but
it's crazy.
I think, I was 11 when that happened. So I'd already had I was a child, but I didn't grow up with the show as much as other people. I didn't. I feel like David Tennant would have been the Doctor I grew up with if I'd started watching at the age that my friends did. But I don't have that level of nostalgia really, and I think I was probably a bit too old for me to now have that nostalgia for Matt Smith. So I think I look back at those things with a very what feels like a refreshing absence of rose-tinted glasses, because everyone I speak to who does Doctor Who YouTube stuff seems to be a big fan of the thing they watched when they were young.
Absolutely.
A lot of the YouTubers, like my friend Tharis, who is slightly younger than me, was watching kind of Series 7 when he was just young enough to really, really love it, whereas I was old enough to just be like, I'm not sure. Not sure this is great, especially after watching RTD. But I think, I guess if I have that kind of blind nostalgic loyalty to a Doctor, it's Peter Capaldi. But
Daddy Capaldi.
But I think I like to think that's because he's really good, but maybe it is because I was like 13 when he was on telly. But
I do think age has something to do with it. I think I've mentioned this before because like I started when I was born in 1996, and I know the last millennium. Ooh,
that was always the fake year that I chose if I wanted to buy something, and it on Steam. What year were you born? I was like, I can't do the maths. 1996. That'll make me old enough, I think.
Hey, good year, man. Good year. But I saw got into it when I was 9. And it's funny you mention about the scare factor, like thinking Doctor Who was scary, because certainly for I don't know about series 2, but definitely series 1, I found several moments, even as a 9-year-old, a bit like I had nightmares about Daleks for a few weeks because I'd never seen one before, and then I do think it is. The show can be very scary to a kid when you are a kid and you're exposed to it for the first time.
I think it does make a lot of people just like, why isn't this specific thing making me as scared as I was when I was 5 years old? It's like, because you're not 5 years old anymore.
5. Yeah,
this is probably quite creepy to other people. But at the same time, I think it is okay to demand better of things if it's for kids. Not demand better, that sounds very entitled, but I think that a show doesn't necessarily lose its merit or potential because it's aimed at a younger audience. I think, for me, the one thing that scared me, and I got into this in a video quite recently, was the trickster from Sarah Jane. And that was I never really was bothered by, the Slitheen or whatever. And this trickster that came in and changed the timeline and made everyone hate you or made everyone forget you and made Sarah Jane vanish, that really messed me up. And that was I made a video on that quite recently about why that concept should make a comeback, because there's so much potential in kind of timeline altering baddies. That video was, for me, I think, a big step as far as like that was what got me my first 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 views on a video. And then I got a lot of subscribers from it. And then from that one doing well, a few of my other ones did well. And I think because of the trickster, I have a soft spot for him now after being scared of him for a decade. But because of the trickster, I feel like I have a bit more of a footing in the community rather than just, a few hundred views here and there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's an area... Like, I think there are, reviews or things or video essays on Sarah Jane or characters from Sarah Jane, but I don't think anyone's done that sort of, like, I guess, deep dive or hypothesis yet.
It didn't look like it.
No.
I didn't think I'm going to be, there's a gap in the market that I'm going to fill here. This is going to be great. But I did have a little look, and there wasn't much on the trickster or, like, that much attention, I think, given to a specific episode, in the same way that people make videos on Doctor Who stories. I didn't really see that much on Sarah Jane stories, and there's the only trickster content was kind of a bit more kind of lore stuff, canon, like he was born here, he's been around for this long, rather than let's talk about the storytelling potential, let's talk about that. And interestingly, I think I had a lot of comments that weren't from people in the Doctor Who community. It was just people who had watched CBBC when they were young. Just like, I don't watch Doctor Who, don't really remember Sarah Jane, but this guy used to creep me out. I was just like, I hope they're not talking about me. But
the Trickster has a great design as well, I think. That really eerie, creepy design that Moffat kind of stole and recycled for the Whispermen ever so slightly. But We'll let him slide on that one, I think. But so have you seen many of the other spin-offs then, like Torchwood or Class, things like that?
I watched all of Class when that came out. I feel like I might have been just the perfect age for that. It seemed just edgy enough for when it was coming out for me to be like, Doctor Who, but a bit of blood, a bit of sex, he
said a bad word.
This is for me. I thought Class was fine. I think I tried to watch Torchwood in that gap that I'd watched the series 1 to 6, and I didn't necessarily think that I was too young for it. I remember seeing is it Day One, the sex gas episode, and I remember watching that just like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. I like Captain Jack, and now that this is happening. So I think I was kind of put off by the first few episodes of Torchwood. I think I probably would maybe get more from it now, but it's not one that I've gone back to yet. I'm sure it's going to happen, but yeah.
I mean, definitely recommend it, because when it came out, I didn't watch it. Well, I didn't watch the first 2 series because I was way too young. I was just about old enough where my parents let me watch Children of Earth, which I thought was phenomenal. I've never bothered with Miracle Day. I tried the first episode and I was like, because the vibe's very like different. It's very Americanized. No shame to American listeners, but I don't know. It just wasn't what I felt Torchwood was, and I was like, I'm not really invested. But so I only watched the first 2 series this year in 2021, like 15 years too late, finally. And I thought, I don't know. Everyone says like the first series is a bit like, like it's really bad. But do you know what? Most of it is actually it holds up pretty well. There is like the sex gas, and there's the series 1 is very like, we have to be edgy, we have to do the sex, we have to have the bad language, and series 2 really tones back on that a bit, and I think it's all the better for it. But yeah, I'd recommend it if you ever get if you get some free time, just see what you think. Because
I mean, I have an interest in it just because it's a Doctor Who thing, but I think, you know, I've gone through phases of being like really into Doctor Who, and I've yet to come across a time where like I'm really into Doctor Who and I have enough time to watch Torchwood all the way through. And, you know, there are times where I have loads of time on my hands, so I'm like, I'll look at Star Wars instead. I'll watch the holiday special.
The holiday special. Segueing nicely into Star Wars there. Very good, very good. So the Star Wars franchise, the beast everyone loves but also apparently hates. So go on then, how did you get into good old Star Wars?
I saw a poster for Revenge of the Sith and thought, that looks cool. And then said to my mum, hey, that looks cool. And she was like, oh, you're not watching that. That's just that. I think she knew it was going to be scary. I was, 3-4 years old. And she, I think, knew enough about. I mean, she was a Star Wars fan. I did not really know this, but she was really excited for Revenge of the Sith, and had, you know, had seen the lava and knew that Anakin was going to get, like, you know, dismembered and turned into Vader, and was like, no, you know what? We'll start you on A New Hope, and so, you know, I think I remember watching the original trilogy and the first 2 prequels over and over again as a kid. And then when Revenge of the Sith kind of came out on DVD, my mum would let me just watch, I think, the opening and the fight with General Grievous, because she thought that was cool. And then and I remember one time, like, I mean, I don't know how familiar you are with the structure of Revenge of the Sith, but it basically starts, the Grievous fight starts, and then it's Anakin and Mace Windu talking, and then it goes back to the Grievous fight. And I always turned it off at Anakin and Windu talking, because I thought it was boring. I thought it was going to get scary, because I think the thing I was most scared of as a child was being scared.
That's valid, man. That's completely valid.
So I was just like, look, my mum says scary things happen, I'm turning it off. But one time I just let it go on. And then it went back to the Grievous fight. And I think after like months of watching the first part, I was suddenly like, oh my God, there's all this.
There's more.
There's more. It doesn't just end midway through. That's crazy. So that's like just a vivid memory. And then, you know, I was, you know, growing up at a time where, like, because there was so much merchandise for the prequels while they were coming out.
It was everywhere.
And then it slowed down a bit, and, you know, I think the hype died down and people grew up. And for me, I was going to, like, kind of you know, charity shops and car boot sales and things, and people's Phantom Menace action figures were just there because people didn't want them anymore. And I was just like, great, then, you know, that's perfect for me. I was probably the second generation of you know, like Star Wars toy owners in that for prequels. And so the toys were a huge part of it for me. Lego was a huge part of it for me, and just kind of playing with it and you know, creating my own stories in my head and all that. And I was so obsessed with Star Wars for so long, I think, to be honest. And then I guess that hasn't really stopped. It kind of, I guess, it was really, really big for me, and then I maybe decided I was a bit too grown up for it. which I guess you always kind of turn against the things you grow up with at a certain point, and then realize you're an idiot. So at like, you know, in 2011, 12, I was just about like, yeah, Star Wars. Yeah, it's Star Wars. You know, I've done that, been there, done that. There's only 6 films. I've seen it all 100 times. That's fine. And so I got really big into Doctor Who, and then 2015 back into Star Wars because The Force Awakens was coming out, and then I think I probably got more into Star Wars than I ever was.
Hell yeah, man!
And
that was such a moment, wasn't it? Like The Force Awakens coming out, and I feel for no matter like where you jumped on with Star Wars, for like the original fans and prequel fans, it was. I just remember it being this big thing. Like Star Wars is back after, because it was like 10 years as well since Revenge of the Sith, so it'd been. I mean, I did the midnight screening with my mates, and, you know, everyone's cheering when the title scroll comes up, and for me, it was, you know, because it had been 10 years, and I feel like, for me, it was the first time I'd been aware of a Star Wars film coming out, I think, especially, like, as a fan, and it was just the most incredible thing. I was just like, oh my God, you know, it's another Star Wars film, because, you know, as long as I'd been aware of it, it had just been a thing that existed in its entirety, and to then... You know, I went up on day one to the Empire IMAX in Leicester Square in London, and, you know, saw it in the kind of, you know, biggest screen I could, with a crowd full of people just going crazy, and it was just incredible, and I love that film. I mean, I don't know how much of a hot take it is, but I'm a huge fan of Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, and I just, it was a happy time to be a Star Wars fan, for me at least. I know the internet was just an absolute mess, and people very quickly turned on The Force Awakens for being too much like A New Hope, and I think... But for me, I was just like, it's Star Wars. It's back. I do think with Force Awakens, because, I mean, I jumped on with I was similar to you. I watched New Hope first. I think it was like on at Christmas Day or something. And my dad, who'd been a Star Wars fan, was like, oh, you're old enough to watch A New Hope. And I liked it. And then, like you say, watched all the other films. And I saw Revenge of the Sith in the cinema, which was really cool. And then, sort of similar to you, binge watched it all, sort of fell out of it, and then Force Awakens comes out. It's like, oh yeah, I love Star Wars. And I think seeing it on midnight and coming out of there, loads of people, amazingly, were like, this is the best Star Wars film ever. Yeah. Like, I remember that. That was such a big thing.
It was really positive for
about 5 minutes. Yeah, and then, like I say, very quickly, everyone's like, oh, it's to like A New Hope. And I think when I've rewatched it a few times, and like, is it similar? In some ways, I think yes. I think that's fair to say it has similar beats or moments. I still enjoy it though. I just see it as like it's just a fun Star Wars movie. I don't think it's like the best. I don't think it's the best film. I don't think it's the best film since Sliced Bread either. But I just think it's a fun. It's a good introduction as well, I think.
I agree, and I think the whole A New Hope comparison to me has always slightly rubbed me the wrong way, because I think it's what happens when you break the film down into bullet points. It's when you go, okay, droid takes this here, does that. And it's like, then when you look, like, that's not how anyone would describe A New Hope. Like, A New Hope is the characters. A New Hope is the kind of the story rather than the plot. And I think that there is more to both of those films than what those lists give them credit for. And although, maybe beat for beat, it is a bit too similar. Starkiller Base and the Death Star, I mean, unforgivably similar. But in other aspects, though, I think, you know, it's a great introduction to those characters and a reintroduction to that world. And I have a lot of love for that film. Although, you know, I think the J.J. Abrams' shortcomings were somewhat revealed a few years later.
Well, we'll get to that one. But with The Last Jedi, then, I noticed you said you love it, which seems to be a rarity in the Star Wars community. But so I mean, I'm trying to think, when I saw that one, I think it wasn't a love, but I respected it. I respected what it was doing, what it was trying to do, because it was very different for Star Wars as well. I think we can all agree on that. It's a very different kind of Star Wars film, and I think I would love it even more if, like, say, if JJ, when he picked up Episode 9, had sort of continued down that path. But I think
why a lot of to the film that had come before.
Yeah, exactly. And quite. And I just think a lot of that backlash, I'm not trying to diminish anyone's views. I know some people genuinely don't like The Last Jedi, and that's fine. But I think a lot of that knee-jerk was because Last Jedi is so different from Force Awakens, and then Rise of Skywalker is very different again. Why do you love it?
In short, because it's perfect. No,
Ooh.
no. I just think it's only partially hyperbolic.
Partially correct.
I think it's just, for me, it's like a beautiful film that works as a film and a Star Wars film, and it takes these characters into surprising but logical directions, I think. With, I think the Luke Skywalker stuff is, I guess, what makes or breaks it for people. It's like, and I think if you can get behind that, the film's great. And I did get behind it because I felt that, the idea of a legend being built up around you, and then pressuring yourself to meet it. And, Luke has always been, as a character, driven by a desire to save his friends. And that's kind of been his only real weakness. And I think that the idea that he is like, yeah, I'm Luke Skywalker, I can do it. I took down, the Emperor, the Empire. And then he sees this kid and he has a vision of his friends dying. He's like, could I do this? I'm Luke Skywalker. I could stop this happening. And then, but the fact is, he didn't just swing his lightsaber at Kylo Ren and try to kill him. He was like, oh no, I can't do that. That would be horrible, know. But then suddenly the fact that he had that millisecond of doubt, then, caused Ben Solo to become Kylo Ren, and then he's just like, I've ruined everything, and then taking himself away and coming to the conclusion that the galaxy is better off without him, I think is a really kind of, as far as like what J.J. Abrams set up with Luke being on that island, it's one of the most interesting things they could have done with it, because I think Rian Johnson specifically said he needed to make sure that it wasn't cowardice that Luke was on that island, that it had to be a form of bravery, like misguided bravery and strength, to be like taking yourself away from the galaxy. Like, he probably shouldn't have done that, but to him, that he was doing the hardest thing he could do and stepping away. And I thought that was great. I love Yoda showing up. I love the conclusion. And I just think Mark Hamill, as much as he didn't agree with what Luke Skywalker was doing in that film, he did a great job. And
it's so weird that, isn't it? How he was he was very vocal about how Luke is like sort of the eternal optimist. But was that surprising when you heard that Mark Hamill wasn't really for the way this character was going in The Last Jedi?
I think I understand where he's coming from, but I also think that the people pointing to him as like the ultimate authority on Luke Skywalker, it's a strange thing to do, because you've probably pointed at the least objective person you could point at. It's like, Mark Hamill should know. It's like, but should he? Like, if he's identified and lived with this character for so long, he probably can't see it in a way that like this character would be flawed and make mistakes. And I think I understand that he would want to return to that Luke Skywalker that he played in the 80s, because it was him playing it, and that's part of himself. And I think that, I understand, to be honest, that he was, hesitant and hoping to return to that, perfect Jedi. And I think I think the one thing that was surprising was that he simultaneously really disagreed and gave the performance of his life.
Yeah,
I think the fact that you look at the behind the scenes and he's just like, I disagree, I fundamentally disagree, but I'll do the best I can to realize your vision. Because to be honest, I think if you just watch that, you'd think, yeah, he got it. But clearly, to be honest, you have to give him credit. He clearly got it and disagreed, which, I think a lot of people, that I've seen seem to just not get it. But it is possible to be fully aware of what's being done and also just think that it's wrong. But he had his own ideas of Luke coming back as a projection and being 60 feet tall. So I think that everyone who initially was like, let Mark Hamill dictate it, he knows, and that was he is just an actor, isn't he?
Yeah, just let him act and nothing else. But no, it is a funny one. So I mean, for anyone listening, honestly, go and rewatch The Last Jedi. If you got Disney Plus or whatever, just have another watch, give it another chance. The Rise of Skywalker, on the other hand. For you, what went wrong?
Everything. No. One of my favorite things about The Last Jedi is that Snoke confrontation with Kylo Ren, Rey, and Snoke. I think that is brilliant. I think it's incredible. And then I was, the most excited I've been is, I think it all happens in quick succession, that Laura Dern's character like hyperspace rams the ships, and Kylo kills Snoke, and they fight the Praetorian Guards, and it, like, all of that happens all at once, and I'm like, oh my god, everything is just changed instantly. Because I was kind of, after The Force Awakens, and it was I was kind of expecting the third film to be very much Return of the Jedi. So an emperor figure, Snoke, sat on the throne, getting Ben and Rey to fight each other, and then Ben sacrificing himself. It would just be a repeat of Return of the Jedi. Yeah. And then as soon as Snoke got cut in half and died, I was like, oh my god, we are in completely new territory. There is no way that they can redo Return of the Jedi in the next film. There is no more emperor. The First Order is being run by two insane, children, essentially, Kylo Ren and Hux. Like, that's a brand new status quo, and they have to do something really creative with it because it has left in such a interesting and new territory. And then they were like, okay, there's no Snoke, chuck in the real Emperor. And it's like, oh, okay. Oh, General Hux and Kylo Ren are kind of at odds and running the First Order together. No, let's just chuck in Richard E. Grant instead, get rid of General Hux, give Kylo Ren back his mask, do all kinds of things, make Rey a Palpatine. Rey Nobody was a thing I was just incredibly impressed with in Last Jedi. Yeah. I thought the whole idea of chucking any kind of, I think not just as a kind of fuck you to the people who cared, but also like, for Rey, she needed it to be someone. She needed to be someone important. That was, she'd put all her, all her energy into finding her parents because she was convinced it would help her fit into the larger narrative. And the fact that she was no one was the hardest thing she could have heard. And then the fact that they went along and was just like, oh no, she's Rey Palpatine. Palpatine cloned himself, and then that person
we're not going to explain how, but somehow he did.
Had a wife.
Yeah. Had a wife.
And they had a Rey. Yeah. And it's just like, okay, that's... all right, I don't like that. I just think that film is all over the place and just really disappointing because I think it's not unpleasant to watch most of the time, but I think it is just rotten at the core, which I think is a really weird thing because when you're watching it, well, at least when I watch it, I have fun. It's a fun time with those characters, but then I think just on pretty much every other level, it just makes me sad.
Yeah, it feels like a very panicked film. Like it's not sure what it's doing or what it's trying to be, and as a result, it does everything, and it just doesn't
and nothing,
and nothing at the same time. Do you think it would have been better if JJ had directed all three?
I see this a lot. I see like the whole argument that should there have been a plan or a coherent vision. And this is something I'm probably going to end up making a video on. So watch that.
You don't have to say too much.
If it's the future. But no, I am of the opinion that there did not need to be a plan or one person have the vision of this thing. I think the best example of why that's a good idea, in my opinion, is just The Last Jedi. That film could not have existed if it'd been that far planned in advance with the others. J.J. Abrams could not have come up with something so wonderful. And but also I think that the originals didn't have a plan.
No, that's true.
And they turned out pretty great. Empire Strikes Back is a sequel that was not planned when they made, and that so in my opinion, Last Jedi and Empire Strikes Back are really good examples of why you don't need one. And then, to be honest, I think all you need, like the difference for me is the thing that is 100% necessary is not a plan, but just people who make sequels that follow on from the thing that came before, which should
on
not
a base on a base level.
It shouldn't be a hot take. It's just like, what? I feel like the best sequels are the ones that maybe acknowledge the one beforehand,
what happened before,
don't try and fix it. It seemed to me that The Rise of Skywalker was made for people that didn't like The Last Jedi instead of people that did, and I think that is one of the most cowardly things they could have done, because the prequels, they were not well received.
No, but George
doubled down.
Bless him. Yeah, George was like, "Fuck you! I'm going to do what I want."
Revenge of the Sith is not made for people that didn't like the last two. It's made for people that did. It's made for fans of Attack of the Clones. It's made for fans of the Phantom Menace, and the kids that grew up watching that love them all. And the kids that Revenge of the Sith is just quite, I think, universally considered a good one.
It's my favorite of all of them. Revenge of the Sith.
I think that's because he doubled down on his vision rather than try to fix what he did in Attack of the Clones. And there's all sorts of things that don't quite line up because there was no plan. Luke and Leia being siblings is just a last-minute attempt to like get rid of a love triangle in the original trilogy. It's just like, oh yeah, I know they were kissing last film, but yeah, they've been siblings all along. Yeah. Darth Vader being Luke Skywalker's father is something that couldn't have really happened if they'd planned it out from the start. That is something that they came up with when writing Empire Strikes Back. And in the prequels, they say that they had a plan for the prequels, but to be honest, all they had was an end point. They had to set up
Anakin will
a New
become
Hope.
Darth Vader.
That doesn't, because they knew where they were ending up, doesn't necessarily mean that they planned everything out. And that's evident in the fact that what I think happened was that George Lucas forgot that Uncle Owen existed. When making Phantom Menace, that didn't cross his mind, because in A New Hope, Uncle Owen is very much written as like an older brother to Luke's father. He's very much like, I don't want you going off like your father did. And turns out Owen wasn't there when Anakin went off. They met like once. It's a bizarre kind of thing that when it came to
Attack of the Clones, isn't it?
In Attack of the Clones, they're like, oh no, Shmi like remarried and no.
Was it basically
then,
George just going, oh
kid.
fuck, I need to...
He's like, oh my god, yeah, Anakin had family, I remember now. It's like, so it's like, it's his stepbrother. They met once. Yeah, C-3PO was built by Anakin and lived there with them. And I think, it's one of those things that it's like, that's the messiness that happens when you don't have a plan. But then you also get the beauty that happens when you don't have a plan. Like, The Last Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, Revenge of the Sith, all things that benefited from doubling down on a vision rather than, course correction.
No, absolutely. And I mean, do you think, they announced, what is it? We're going to have a new trilogy at some point in the future that's not part of this whole Sky. Isn't it meant to be like, it's brand new? Thank God. But like,
There's a few things on the slate that I'm not quite sure, how it's going to link in. We know some specifics, mostly about TV. It seems to be where their focus is. Things like The Mandalorian. They're like, Mandalorian's done well, give us 4 Mandalorian spin-offs at once. And it's like, okay, great. That's not going to make us sick of it. But I think, Rian Johnson has supposedly been given a trilogy, but I doubt that they will allow that after the backlash to Last Jedi. I think as beautiful and wonderful as those films will probably end up if they ever happen, I feel like that Disney would just be like, not worth the risk, really.
Maybe,
which is sad.
But Last Jedi made over $1 billion, and Disney likes that sweet cash. So.
I know they like money, but I think if you want an example of Disney not being like happy to stick with Rian Johnson's vision, you just have to look at Rise of Skywalker, because to me that feels very pandering, to people who didn't like Rian Johnson's vision. I think, from what I understand, Kathleen Kennedy, the head of Lucasfilm, really likes Rian Johnson, but Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, doesn't like Rian Johnson. And I think that if she had her way, he would be back doing these films ASAP. But because she answers to him, there's a bit of kind of grey area there. But we'll have to wait and see. I've always said that I want Star Wars to push into like new directions. And as much as I'm excited for Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan series, I also think, I don't want every character to get their show. I don't want to tune into Jabba the Hutt, a Star Wars story every week on Disney Plus. I think just give us.
I think that's why they stopped with the films, wasn't it? Because we had Rogue One and we had Solo, and there was Obi-Wan was going to be a film, wasn't it? As was like Boba Fett and Yoda and a whole bunch of characters, and then after Solo was not needed, they were like, oh yeah, maybe we should. Solo's a funny one though, because like I watched it in the cinema and like as an adventure story, it's fine, it's a bit of fun, but I came out and I asked myself, I was like, did this film need to happen, to exist? And I was like, not really. So
I think their reaction to Solo's failure was quite knee-jerk. I think it was very much because Solo was just 5 months after The Last Jedi. So after we'd been used to getting a film every year, and then suddenly, and also they are terrified of doing like promoting 2 projects at once. So we didn't get a Solo trailer until February, and then it came out in May. And then so there was no time to build hype. There was no interest in it. And it would come out just after a film that had caused a bit of a stir. Everyone was pretty much, I think, burnt out a bit on Star Wars. People that loved the film, people that hated it, just no one was really, really hyped for Solo. So I think that film failed for like a number of reasons. I think the marketing was poor. It was sandwiched between like Deadpool 2 and Infinity War. So it's like
it's like the
great.
worst place to be. Yeah.
You've not done that film any favors, because Last Jedi was meant to be a May release, and then it got pushed to December. And Solo was not pushed to December because they had Mary Poppins holding the 2018 holiday spot, and they were just like, "Oh, let's just kill it, I guess."
Check it out, yeah.
And I feel it's hard to like feel bad for I feel bad for Solo, but I think there were just a lot of things going on that made that film not work. And if it was conceived now, it would go to Disney Plus as a miniseries, and would be probably loved. I think with that cast and that feel and that kind of adventure tone, people would really like it as a small scale story. But I think it wasn't meant to be on the big screen.
I do think you're right. I think it's this fear of like keeping audiences waiting too long. But I think, let's say with the prequels and the original trilogy, I think that it was all 3 years between them. And I think when you allowed that amount of time, it's a real sweet spot. It's long enough that people still, I think, remember the like the IP and the property, but it
keeps it an
long,
event,
That's it. Yeah, it makes it an event thing. Like I remember when Revenge of the Sith came out, even though I wasn't as immersed in the whole Star Wars thing. The hype, it was like, this is it. The saga comes to an end. It's what you've all been. So it wasn't just like a 3-year wait from Attack of the Clones. It was like this near 30-year wait from like the start of a New Hope. Whereas now, as you say, it's like, oh yeah, Force Awakens obviously was a big thing, but then Last Jedi, it got its promotion, but even 2 years felt very.
And with Rogue One in the middle,
yeah.
I think Disney are just finding out how to do it. They're just finding their way when it comes to Star Wars, and it's maybe it's a shame that they were their big the way that they found their way with it. They had episode 7, 8, and 9. That was their learning experience, and maybe they should have started smaller and then built up to a sequel trilogy. But I guess with that original cast, you've not got long with them. I mean, they only managed 2 with all 3 of them. I mean, obviously not all 3, but quite. And I think that's another thing that killed episode 9, to be honest, was the death of Carrie Fisher, because Colin Trevorrow's script was, I think the reason he stepped aside was in part because Disney weren't happy with the response to Last Jedi, and also because Leia was integral to that script, and there was no way of doing it without Carrie Fisher. And I think that's really sad, because Force Awakens is Han's film, Last Jedi is Luke's film, Rise of Skywalker is not Carrie's
could have
film.
been Leia's, no, absolutely. It is a shame, and it is one of those like victims of circumstance. Like no one could have predicted it, I suppose, or seen it coming, which is that's
like the one thing where
shame.
I'm like less angry at Rise of Skywalker. It's like, it's the worst film ever, but it's like you've got to give them just a bit, just like that was awful.
You got to cut them some slack along the way. But on that thing of like cinema events, taking time to wait, do you think it's different for telly? Because just bringing it back to Doctor Who, people say, if ever there's like a gap of a year, people are like, why, I want it every year, same time. Why is it not happening? And I think, production techniques have changed. Things are more demanding. Things take more time and all that sort of stuff. But do you think it like, is that if you were in charge, say, of Doctor Who or like Star Wars TV shows, would your aim be to do like, sort of like in the RTD, or like a series every year, or would you be more open to let's do a year, take a year out, come back?
I think it very much depends on the kind of tone and the type of structure that the show has. I think like every year worked quite well for Russell T Davies, from what I understand.
It did,
I watched
believe
it all
me.
at once. But no, I was aware of how big a thing Doctor Who was, and I think that for films and things, having an event that you wait for is a big thing. And when it's something like Star Wars or an Avengers film, I know there's stuff in between, but those Avengers films do not happen every year. And I think for that, people are willing to wait. But for something like Doctor Who, I feel like you leave it too long and people have forgotten about it. I think people's attention spans are so short. I don't know if that's these days or, you know, whatever, but I feel like if they're not constantly being reminded that Doctor Who exists, then they just forget. And when it comes to the next thing, they're like, oh yeah, Doctor Who, yeah. I mean, even me, you know, in the gap between series 9 and 10 for Doctor Who, I gravitated a lot more to Star Wars in that period. And I mean, obviously that was because Star Wars was back, but also just because, you know, Doctor Who wasn't keeping me, you know, engaged as a fan. And I don't know what that says about my attention span, but I definitely think that for a show like Doctor Who, it probably needs to always be on, or it will just lose relevance. Because I think, you know, leave Doctor Who 5 years, no one's by the end of that 5 years asking for it to come back, and at least in the state it's currently in.
I'd say like the main, like the more casual audience probably, like aside from fans, or maybe some fans would as well. I don't know.
Fans will release Doctor in Distress too, but
let's do it, charity single.
But general public, no.
Yeah, I mean, some fans want it cancelled now.
They do. There's
as soon as a woman was announced, they're like, cancel it.
There's a strange thing that, like, not maybe a misunderstanding of like what happened in 1989. The idea was not, let's put it on a hiatus and then bring it back in 2005 with a higher quality. Everyone's like, and people are now saying, like, you know, cancel the show like they did then and then bring it back, make it really good. It's like, no.
Doesn't work like that.
I am of the opinion that, like, any Doctor Who on telly is better than no Doctor Who on telly. I think as much as this really been for me, it's for some people, and you know, I'm happy that there are people that really love it, and I'm going to still make videos complaining about it sometimes, but at the same time, I am, you know, I would rather it exist, you know, than want it dead. I know some people want Jodie to be the Wilderness Years Doctor that gets redeemed in books and Big Finish and everything, but I'd rather not go back. You know,
that's completely fair enough. I think, like, this era is a weird one, I think, because obviously it's great that I'm seeing so many people again who are coming into it for the first time or have found like a new, like, I found a lot of it sounds weird, but like a lot of the fun back in the series. Not that like the Capaldi years or anything wasn't fun, but like I haven't watched an era where I've got so much like just pure, I guess, like joy out of it since the RTD era. So for me, it's really fun on that level.
Yeah.
Then it's not perfect. There's stories I probably like less than others, and some bits and pieces I don't like as much. But yeah, I have a lot of fun with it. But I do understand and respect those people who now feel like, because I guess it's hard with Doctor Who because the era's changed so often.
Yeah.
Sometimes some eras just don't feel like they're for you. Like the Matt Smith era for me, when that started, I was 14. So that lovely old teenage age when, like you say, you want things to be edgy and like you're too cool for anything. I still watched every episode when it came out, but I remember going through Matt Smith's era less and less. I felt like the show was for me. I was like, these stories aren't connecting with me. I'm not enjoying this. This feels too, in my eyes, like too childish, even though it arguably wasn't. But you know what I mean? It's that weird. Yeah. And now, like, I can watch the Matt Smith era, and there are episodes I really like, but it's not an era I revisit all that often, just because I still feel like I can't connect with it for many of those similar reasons.
I assume that, you know, for as long as Doctor Who continues, it's something that will be a struggle for the fans, is, you know, accepting the change, and not even like accepting change, because I feel like that almost like dismisses the whole thing, because, you know, it's not just like that we don't like change, it's that we like a specific type of Doctor Who. And, you know, I think it may, you know, I was fully prepared to accept, you know, the Chris Chibnall stuff. I was like, you know, this feels different, but, you know, it can still be good. And for me, it's not what I'm looking for in the show, but I'm still not kind of really upset about it. I think maybe I have developed a healthy emotional attachment to Doctor Who, or a detachment. And it's good. A kind of, I'm attached to the level that I can enjoy when it's good, but when it's not good, I'm just like, yeah, that's all right. You know, when it comes to Star Wars, I think that's too much that I'm just my heart
You're
and
far gone
soul
by
is
this
poured
point. You're
into
out,
it.
like,
And if it's good, I'm I'm in love, and if it's not, I am just crushed. Whereas with
You've
Doctor
sold your
Who,
soul down the river now, so
yeah,
to speak. Like, it's too late.
I
It's
think,
too far gone.
I am too invested in that universe to settle for less. But when it comes to Doctor Who, it's just like, you know what? If someone's liking it, then it's doing something right. And I'll wait till. Oh, I won't. I'll watch every week, but I'm happy to wait until the next showrunner comes along and puts their spin on it. Really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just on that thing of people liking it, something I like to ask a lot of guests who are into Doctor Who is, I think we've all got that one episode where, like, we love it, like, it's a great episode, whatever, but the fandom, the majority are like, no, this isn't really... Do you know what I mean? An episode that is perceived to be not so good, but you love it. Is there an episode like that for you?
I'm not sure about just, like, straight up love for something. I feel like this is a popular hot take, which is a strange thing. Love and Monsters, I think, is quite good.
Yeah.
But see, that's because that's a controversial opinion that suddenly a lot of people seem to have, so it feels a bit more accepted. But what else? I surprisingly really, really enjoyed Revolution of the Daleks.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah.
And everyone I know who likes it is already on board with the Chibnall era, likes Jodie, all that. Everyone who dislikes it is people who, like me, it just don't really like it. For some reason, I was watching it just like, oh, this is fun. Probably that level of fun that you were talking about. But it made me just surprised because it's never really clicked for me until then.
Sure.
Maybe I did really like The Witchfinders, but I think that's mostly because of Alan Cumming.
Cumming. Yeah, a lot of people say that, yeah.
That was just, for me, just an incredible return to form, just for the joy of Doctor Who, to be honest, just this incredible performance. And I've said that he should come back and be like the Churchill of the Chibnall era.
Could you imagine?
And just constantly having him pop up, do a Guy Fawkes story, and get King James.
Just wait, he'll have
it.
Big Finish box sets and all that sort of stuff.
It would be incredible. I love Alan Cumming. I think he's such a fantastic performer, and that's. For me, it's not really a guilty pleasure because I love loving it, but it's just like, just give me more of that.
Absolutely. And I do wish, like you said, the argument, we want Jodie to be the Doctor who's redeemed on things like Big Finish and novelizations, and I get where they're coming from, but I wish like why can't that happen now on TV? Because I do think part of it is the BBC. Like with Series 12, they just didn't promote it at all, which is baffling. It seems like they thought, this is one of our biggest shows, it'll sell itself. And like you were saying, it's kind of like, no, you have to outside of the fan base, you've got to remind people when it's back on and all that sort of stuff. And I just think
it was strange.
And even the things like, some of the comics, and I've seen criticisms of like the whole Time Lord Victorious thing. It's like in an era that is meant to be, she's the incumbent Doctor, she's the forefront of the brand. Yet all you've seen of the brand, especially in the past year, is David Tennant. Even in what's that game, The Edge of Time or whatever it is, the
Edge
VR
of Reality
game,
is the new one.
And they've done an expansion, and it's like, who's appearing? It's David Tennant again. Like we all love him. DT, God love him. But
absolutely.
Do you think there's a bit too much of? I don't want to say side. Well, it is. I guess it's like sidelining her as like the brand-facing Doctor, if you like.
Yeah, I think last year, if you'd asked me like who was the Doctor, if David Tennant was 2020's Doctor, I think, just by the looks of it, like you'd be shocked to find out that he wasn't. And I think partially because he was available a lot last year. The pandemic made him.
Wasn't every actor, yeah.
And it was just like, okay, we've got this Doctor that people like and who sells. Let's use him to push things. And that's. From a marketing perspective, you get it, but at the same time, it's almost like shooting yourself in the foot in the long term, because it's like, short term people remember and like David Tennant as the Doctor, but long term you're absolutely sabotaging your current Doctor in the process. And I guess that's just a call that they've made. I'm still holding out hope that Jodie Whittaker will become my favorite Doctor. But
I think she's great as an actress. I think she's fantastic, and like her performance and stuff. But I just think, even in terms of like expanded media, though, you know, like you look back at the RTD era, well, all the Doctors up to Jodie, they all had like, you know, spin-off books and, well, just like toys, loads of stuff. Even in the Capaldi era, people are like, oh, there wasn't that much there. I was like, no, there were books every year, every season. There was new novels at the very least, you know. So
Lego Dimensions.
Oh, we'll get to that in a moment. Don't you worry. But yeah, I just think with Jodie, I think Series 11, there was like a few books, like 2 or 3 released, and then they've just sort of stopped. And like there may be other reasons for that, could be budget or whatever, but I just think it is a shame that, especially say last year, a time when Doctor Who, well, it was on the air at the start of the year, but you know, when the gaps are longer, you need that sort of stuff to bolster it. I remember mates in the playground between Eccleston and Tennant, they were reading the Eccleston books that came out, so it was a good stopover. Like you need things like that, I think.
I think that's absolutely true, and I think that it may be that there's not the budget for it, and there's not all that, but it's one of those kind of cycles of they don't have the budget for it because it's not a big enough property, but it's not a big enough property because they're not doing that kind of thing about it, and it's just a kind of disaster of just it needs to, in order to be big, it needs to be pushed, but they won't push it until it's big, and it's
a vicious cycle that goes on and on and on. But Lego Dimensions, you did mention it, so by the time this comes out, it might already be out. Who knows? But you are
I don't think so.
or maybe not. Well, at the time of recording, you said to me before we started, you're working on a proper deep dive video into the video game Lego Dimensions. And for anyone who's like, what on earth is that? You know, it's Lego games, Lego Star Wars, Lego Indiana Jones, all those great games. That, but literally every pop culture property, or many of them you can think of, and one of them being Doctor Who, of course. But so what made you want to delve back into that then? Because when was it discontinued? Was it 2017, 18?
I think it was discontinued in 2017, but was on the path to death by 2016. I mean, maybe even as soon as it started. But it's a game that I find fascinating because it started with an incredible bang. The marketing push and the hype surrounding it was fantastic. And then, they had these plans for like a 5-year plan and a 3-year plan. And then it was like, after year 2, it was like, they're not doing another plan, are they? We're not getting anything else. And I think it's a really interesting game. I think it's a great game. I really enjoy it. And I'd love to kind of dissect it from like a gameplay and a story and review it as a game, and also look at what happened with it. Like why did this game that started with such incredible promise in 2015 with Doctor Who, Lord of the Rings, The Simpsons, Back to the Future, like all these incredible things in one game with an incredible voice cast, suddenly Chris Pratt's in the game, which is just bizarre. Like that's got A-listers in this project. And I thought, it's been 6 years since it came out, and I remember really enjoying it at the time. I was feeling like I wanted to jump back into it. To be honest, I wanted to originally just replay the Doctor Who stuff and make a video on what was my Doctor Who YouTube channel. For I was like, why not look at the Lego level with Doctor Who and Davros and Missy and this incredible like fan servicey story that they've got. And I thought, but then I'd have to kind of explain the whole point of the game and how that works. But then I'd like to talk about the Back to the Future. Maybe I could make it a series. It's like, oh no, you know what, I'll put it all in one video. Which at the moment, that's my plan. I don't know when it's going to come out. I've got like 6 different Word documents for like 6 different aspects of the game. Like I've done a whole kind of introduction to Toys to Life in general, looking at Disney Infinity and Skylanders. And I'd
rest
like
in peace to both of those. So.
And it's one of those things that I'm really excited about and also terrified to sink my teeth into. Right now, I've just been replaying the game. I spent ages rebuilding all the Lego. It's currently just out of the shot here. I've just got just a huge pile. I've got I've got Doctor Who here.
Hey, there's Capaldi. Audio listeners, get on YouTube right now.
It's really exciting.
So did all of the figures you've got that? So that was all stuff you bought at the time, or have you had to buy anything like now to sort of?
I initially was just going to look at the stuff I had at the time, and then I was like, you know what, this is an opportunity to get all the things I never got then. I think by the end of the game, I was losing interest in it, as the developers and the studio were. But I think, it was something I was obsessed with in 2015 and 16. And then by 2017, whatever. So, but I just thought, you know what? It's probably going to get harder and harder to get my hands on these things. So I went back and got the Lego Sonic and the Lego Mission Impossible level, which is fantastic, and like the Lego City guy, just because. And I think that was it's hopefully going to be a comprehensive look. I don't know if it's going to be 45 minutes, an hour and a half. I don't know if anyone's going to watch it, but it's something
I'll
that
be
I'd really
watching,
like
man. I love a deep dive. I like my
Uh,
video games too. I like my Lego, but
Yeah, I've never covered a video game before, but I for some reason think I have the authority to do so.
you do whatever you want, mate. You've got the right to make whatever you want. But
Yeah.
the Toys to Life thing was such a weird genre, because I remember when Skylanders exploded, I want to say I was about 14, 15. So I think, I was probably a bit too old to be diving into it. But I was like, it's a cool concept. And then I think it's one of those things where all the other companies were like, hey, Skylanders seems to be making money. Why don't we do that? And you get Lego Dimensions and Disney Infinity. I guess the only ones that have kind of survived, but in a weird way, is the Nintendo Amiibo. Because they're technically like I say Toys to Life. You can... But... And they still make some every now and then, but they're not really used for like gameplay. It's more like optional.
It's a good way of getting the just high quality versions of like those figures, figures of Nintendo characters. And I think Amiibo, a lot of people thought that was leading up to something, and once that they'd released like loads of things, that there would be an incredible Skylanders, Disney Infinity, Lego Dimensions style crossover, like Smash Bros, but in a Toys to Life game. But then it didn't happen, and they just kind of give you a power up every now and then. It's like that seemed like the most obvious thing ever when you've already sold like hundreds of these things, to suddenly turn them into a game. But there's no Amiibo game.
That's just Nintendo to a T, isn't it? They make you think one thing, and then they'll be like, no, we're not doing that because we're Nintendo. So.
Yeah, I got Skylanders in 2011, and because I saw it on the telly and thought, oh my god, because I was like 10 years old and the
corporate
perfect age
advertising.
To just be like, it was just I was the perfect age to just be like, oh my god. And but then I ended up not liking it, and I didn't know why it became so popular until 2021. 10 years later, when I'm doing research for this Lego Dimensions thing, and I find out that the version I played was the 3DS version, which I know I played it on the 3DS, but I did not know that it was a completely different game on every other platform. So I was playing
when they do that, though. It's so...
I was playing a terrible like action platformer that had like nothing really to do with Toys to Life, and I didn't understand why it got so many more games and everyone was obsessed with it. Everyone was talking about it. I was just like, I played Skylanders. That was lost interest really quickly, but I did not realize that was such a bizarre thing that they would call the game exactly the same thing and then just make it a different game, just straight up, just.
I think if I had asked for Skylanders, I think my parents would have been like, wait, we have to buy you the game and then continuous toys? No way. They would have blacked that out straight away. But so have you always been a gamer then? You like your video games?
I like my video games. I think I never had a PlayStation or Xbox or anything until I was in like year 7 or 8. So I think I kind of missed out. I know a lot of people my age have like loads of PS2 based memories and things. But for me,
PlayStation 2.
For me, it was Nintendo until year 7 and 8. I had a DS, I think maybe a 3DS, and the Wii was just the dominant thing. I didn't even have I look back at like the proper first party Wii games, and it's the Zeldas and the whatever, but I was always getting just some bizarre Wii games. Just
there was many bizarre cool. Wii games. Yeah.
I think back then when you'd like not attached to the internet or anything, it's just like, all right, yeah, this game looks cool, I'll get that, and that's no idea that like it's rated horribly and that Nintendo released I didn't know Super Smash Bros existed until I was like 13, and my friend was like, what, you you love the Wii. Why do you not know that Smash Bros is Mario? And I was just like, there's a what?
My first experience of a Call of Duty game was on the Wii, and I look back and think, oh god, that was all. It was World at War, and you had to put the remote in like the gun attachment.
The gun,
and whilst it was very cool doing the motion control, but my god,
that's not a Call of Duty.
It was hideously. It was choppy. It didn't really run well. It was just Call of Duty just wasn't meant for the Nintendo Wii, really.
No. And it's like I wouldn't expect a Mario on a PS4, But I guess I'm a Mario guy. I think that's if I had to point at a franchise, a series that was my thing. I've played all the 3D Marios. I've now very nearly 100% completed all the 3D Marios. But I'm stuck on Mario Sunshine because I cannot find the motivation. I cannot find the motivation to really grind at that. But
it's the
I love
one.
Galaxy and Galaxy 2 were like my video. I mean, Lego games were like what got me into gaming. The Lego Star Wars games specifically.
Yeah, and games they were.
Yeah.
My God.
So, I mean, that's why Lego Dimensions got me so interested, because it's like, okay, if there's ever going to be a franchise, a series that Toys to Life makes perfect sense with, Lego is already already a series of games and toys. Why not combine them?
Hell yeah.
But yeah, so the Lego games and the Marios is kind of where my passion for gaming is. I've just been and Mario Odyssey is one of my favorite games of all time. This year...
you might hate me for this, but I bought a Switch in the summer of 2018. I held off for ages, but I was like, I'll finally put this up. It was cool. I got it with Mario Odyssey because it was like, buy a Switch, get a free game with it. I haven't touched it even to this day. I don't know why. I just haven't. I think it's because literally at the very same time I then bought on top, I bought Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Right.
And because I was living with friends, it was like, oh, we'll obviously play the multiplayer, and then I got other games that I wanted to play. I just haven't got around to it. So it's sat on my shelf for 3 years unplayed.
This is outrageous.
I know. I will get to it because everyone's like, it's brilliant and you need to play it. And I'm like, I will, I promise. Just give me more time.
They re-released the Wii U Mario 3D World.
Yes, I'm tempted to buy that.
I'd never played that because I never had a Wii U. But then the biggest surprise of this year for me was they added Bowser's Fury as like a kind of add-on to that game.
Yeah, what's that like?
Just unbelievably good.
Okay.
Like an incredible kind of like 3D World is like a very linear Mario 3D game. You kind of go to the flagpoles, you do that. There's a fixed camera. It's not like a collectathon like the Mario Odyssey or 64 or Sunshine. It's like very much course clear. And then just as an additional thing to bundle in with this Wii U port, they were like, we'll turn 3D World into an incredible Mario Odyssey style collectathon in a wonderful world with incredible music, use all the power-ups and mechanics in a whole new way in like a fully 3D environment. And I couldn't believe it. As I was playing it, I was just like, how is this a thing? How have they just like created what I think is like a perfect condensed Mario game and just chucked it as part of a port? It's it takes like 6 hours to maybe 5-6 hours to like 100%, but it's still like one of my favorite Mario games of all time, and one of my favorite games.
You might have convinced me there. Then I might have to pick up a copy because I was curious. Because like you, I didn't own a Wii U. I mean, who did? Am I right? But I know that one of you out there will be in the comments now, being like, "I owned a Wii U. Thank you very much." It's like, yeah, well, all the games got ported over, so wasted investment, I'm afraid. But yeah, no, I might pick that up because I do want to play 3D World, but also Bowser's Fury. Bowser's Fury is pretty good.
I can't recommend it enough. I think just that was the biggest shock to me. Was like, I've 100%ed 3D World. I'll check out 3D. I'll check out Bowser's Fury, and then I was just like, oh my, this is game of the year. This is perfection. But
you've sold me, man. You've absolutely sold me.
I expect a commission from Nintendo for that one.
Yeah, Nintendo, listening, don't copyright strike the video, please. I get enough trouble with that on this channel. But oh man, awesome. Well, I think we'll start to round it off there. But before we go, Joe, first of all, honestly, thank you so much for coming on to chat with me. It's been this has been one of the most varied chats I have. You know, like we've discussed Doctor Who, Star Wars, video games. It's been it's
an
been
insight
great.
into my mind. I think these topics are going around in my head just 24/7. So it's nice.
Hey, that's a mind I connect with, and I want to be a part of. So, before you go, then, if you want to shout out any of your socials, any of your work, please feel free to do so now.
I guess just my YouTube channel, Joe Brennan. I'm now the top result if you search Joe Brennan after a long time of trying to dethrone this kind of Instagram drama guy. I've finally become the top Joe Brennan on the platform. But yeah, I do video essays, maybe a few reviews here and there. I just kind of long form content, 10-minute content. And about Doctor Who, everything really. And Twitter, I guess, is where I'm most active on social media. I'm at Joe_Brennan_, which, I think recently I've been spamming it with Star Wars tweets for May the 4th, but I'm hoping to annoy I lost a few followers for that one, but I was just like, Star Wars time, I'm tweeting all day, and people are like, I've had enough of this guy. But yeah, that's where I'm most active. And
Awesome. Well, you guys should go and subscribe to Joe on YouTube and go and follow him on Twitter. And I had the same thing because I'm posting at the time we're recording this. We're building up to one of my favorite events of the year, the Eurovision Song Contest. I don't care what anyone says, but I've been doing like fun facts of the day about Eurovision because I really love the history of it. And some people are like either commenting or leaving saying like, "Why are you posting about this?" It's because I'm like, well, it's my fucking Twitter account. I'll post what I want. So awesome. But yeah, go and follow Joe, go and subscribe to him. He makes great content, as we've discussed. Again, if you're a fan of Doctor Who, Star Wars, just pop culture in general, go and check out his stuff. And now I've got to remember my bits. First of all, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you very much. Please do subscribe to this channel. We've got a new podcast out every week with a great line of guests. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Let us know what you thought in the comments down below. And if you're listening to us, hello, on Spotify and Google, Apple, all those wonderful places. Give us a follow, a watch. They all have different words for basically the same thing. Click that button. They're coming out every week as well. And yeah, hope you enjoyed this episode. So all that's left to be said is, Joe, once again, mate, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it.
No problem, man. And for all of you lot listening, I will see you in the next one.